December 25, 1944. 0842 hours, 28,000 feet over Western Germany. Captain James Jimmy Williams, flight leader of Red Flight 332nd Fighter Group, banked his P-51C Mustang 300 yards off the starboard wing of a B-17 Flying Fortress. The bomber belonged to the 457th Bombardment Group, part of a 1-2-900 aircraft raid targeting synthetic oil facilities near Leipzig. But this particular B-17 carried something special painted across its wings in letters 4 feet high. Merry Christmas, Adolf. Williams keyed his radio. Red Flight, close it up. That message is going to attract every Messerschmitt in the Luftwaffe. He was right. What happened in the next 47 minutes would prove why the 332nd Fighter Group, the Tuskegee Airmen, had earned their reputation as the best bomber escorts in the 8th Air Force, and why one bomber crew's audacious Christmas greeting would become a symbol of American defiance that no German fighter pilot could erase. If stories of courage and ingenuity move you, please like and subscribe. Every subscription helps us honor the memories of those who served. James Williams grew up in Mobile, Alabama, where his father ran a garage that served the city's black community. White-owned shops wouldn't work on black folks' cars, so Samuel Williams learned to fix everything: Model Ts, delivery trucks, tractors, marine engines. Young Jimmy spent his childhood in that garage, learning that machines followed rules that didn't care about the color of your skin. An engine either ran or it didn't. Physics worked the same for everyone. When he was 16, a barnstormer brought a Curtiss JN4 Jenny to Mobile for weekend rides. Jimmy convinced his father to let him go up. 5 minutes after takeoff, he knew. The way the stick responded to pressure, the feel of lift and drag, the three-dimensional thinking required to turn physics into flight. This was his future. But in 1938, Alabama, black boys didn't become pilots. The Army Air Corps didn't accept Negroes. Commercial aviation was closed. Even flight schools turned away colored applicants. Then came 1941, Pearl Harbor. And 6 months later, the announcement that the Army Air Corps would train Negro pilots at a new facility in Tuskegee, Alabama. Williams, now 23 and working at his father's expanded garage, applied within a week. 3 months later, he reported to Moton Field. The washout rate at Tuskegee was brutal, higher than white training programs. The instructors were excellent, but the pressure was immense. Every black cadet knew they were representing their entire race. Failure would be used as proof that Negroes couldn't fly. Success might open doors for others. Williams graduated in Class 43F July 1943. He'd mastered the AT-6 Texan, proven himself in aerobatics and gunnery, demonstrated the discipline required for formation flying. He received his silver wings and commission as a second lieutenant. Assignment: 332nd Fighter Group, training for deployment to the Mediterranean Theater. The 332nd, composed of the 99th, 100th, 301st, and 302nd Fighter Squadrons, deployed to Ramitelli Airfield in Italy in February 1944. Initially equipped with P-39 Airacobras, then P-47 Thunderbolts, the group transitioned to P-51 Mustangs in July 1944. They painted the tails of their Mustangs bright red. Other groups started calling them Red Tails. The Germans called them Schwarze Vogelmännchen, Black Birdmen. By December 1944, Williams had flown 73 combat missions. He'd destroyed 4 German aircraft, 2 Messerschmitt Bf-109s, 1 Focke-Wulf FW-1-90, and 1 Junkers Ju-88. But his primary job wasn't hunting kills, it was protection, bomber escort, the mission that defined the 332nd's reputation. Other fighter groups accumulated impressive kill counts, but sometimes abandoned bombers to chase enemy fighters. The 332nd never did. Their doctrine was simple: stay with the bombers. If Germans wanted to attack B-17s or B-24s, they had to go through the Red Tails first. And that record, that perfect escort record, was sacred. The B-17G Christmas Spirit belonged to the 457th Bombardment Group's 749th Squadron, based at Glatton, England. Its crew, pilot Captain Robert Mack Mackenzie, co-pilot Lieutenant Thomas Chen, navigator Lieutenant David Stein, bombardier Lieutenant Anthony Rizzo, and 6 enlisted men, had completed 19 missions together since September. On December 23rd, during a mission briefing for a Christmas Day raid, Mackenzie's crew learned they'd been selected for a special assignment. Group intelligence had identified a high-value target, the Zeit synthetic oil plant, one of the few still producing aviation fuel for the Luftwaffe. The mission would involve the entire 8th Air Force, over 1,200 heavy bombers with fighter escort. That night, Crew Chief Technical Sergeant William Duke Morrison approached Mackenzie with an idea. "Sir, I know this is unconventional, but the ground crew wants to paint something special on the wings for tomorrow's mission." Mackenzie raised an eyebrow. "What kind of something?" "A Christmas message, for Adolf." Mackenzie grinned. "Show me." Morrison sketched it out. "Merry Christmas, Adolf," in 4-foot letters across the top surface of both wings, visible from above and below, visible to every German fighter pilot who got close, a middle finger in the form of holiday greetings. "Intelligence won't approve it," Mackenzie said. "Sir, with respect, intelligence doesn't fly the plane. You do." Mackenzie looked at his co-pilot. Chen shrugged. "We're already painting a target on our backs just by being in the formation. Might as well make it memorable." They painted it that night, white letters outlined in red on the olive drab wings. Morrison and his crew worked in freezing darkness, using every spotlight and work lamp they could requisition. By 0600 hours December 25th, Christmas Spirit carried the most provocative message ever flown over the Third Reich. When Mackenzie taxied out for takeoff at 0715, the tower controller's voice crackled with barely suppressed laughter. "Christmas Spirit, you are cleared for takeoff. Godspeed, and, happy holidays." The 332nd Fighter Group received their mission briefing at Ramitelli at 0530. Target, Leipzig area oil facilities. Escort duty for bombers of the 15th Air Force. Williams, now promoted to captain and leading red flight of the 100th Fighter Squadron, studied the mission parameters. Long flight. Heavy opposition expected. Christmas Day meant nothing to the Luftwaffe. At 0645, 36 P-51C Mustangs lifted off from Ramitelli. Each aircraft carried 6 50-caliber machine guns, 1,180 rounds of ammunition, and external fuel tanks for the extended mission. The red tails gleamed in the early light. Williams led his 4-ship flight, himself as lead, Lieutenant Marcus Tex Washington as his wingman, plus 2 more pilots. The rendezvous point was over Austria. Williams scanned the sky, watching for the bomber stream. At 0838, he spotted them, a formation of 36 B-17s flying in staggered combat boxes at 28,000 feet. Red Flight moved into escort position, with Williams taking the high starboard side. That's when he saw it. "Red led, this is Red 3. Lieutenant James Hawk Hawkins, flying number 3 position. Are you seeing what I'm seeing on that lead bomber's wings?" Williams adjusted his oxygen mask and stared. The white letters stood out clearly against the dark wings. "Merry Christmas, Adolf." "Jesus Christ," Washington muttered over the radio. "Somebody's got balls." Williams keyed his mic. "Red Flight, maintain position. That bomber just painted the biggest target in the European theater on itself. Stay sharp." The bomber formation proceeded northeast. Williams held position 300 yards off the starboard wing, continuously scanning the sky. Other elements of the 302nd maintained positions at different altitudes and positions around the formation. This was standard doctrine for the Red Tails: blanket coverage, constant vigilance, never abandon the bombers. At 0852, Williams spotted the first contrails, 15 miles ahead, at 32,000 feet. 6 aircraft, approaching from 2 o'clock high. Then more contrails. Another group at 10 o'clock, slightly lower. Williams counted quickly. 16, 18, 20 German fighters. Messerschmitt Bf-109s and Focke-Wulf FW-190s. A major interception effort. Red Flight bandits, 2 o'clock high, 4,000 feet above us. More at 10 o'clock level, count 20 plus. Williams pulled his stick back slightly, gaining altitude. Green leader, you see them? Affirm, red lead. We're moving to intercept the high group. Roger, red flight, arm guns. Stay with the bombers until they commit. This was the fundamental tension of bomber escort. Fighters wanted to climb and attack. That's what they were built for. But the mission was protection, not hunting. The 332nd's doctrine: let the Germans come to you. Force them to fight through your screen to reach the bombers. The German fighters split into 2 groups. The higher group, 8 Bf-109s, began a diving attack toward the bomber formation. The second group, 10 FW-190s, circled wide, looking for an opening. Williams watched the 109s commit. Red flight, high group is diving. 2, 4, you're with me. 3, maintain position on the bombers. He advanced his throttle and pulled back on the stick. The Merlin engine roared. The P-51 climbed, trading speed for altitude. Williams positioned himself between the diving 109s and the bomber formation. The Germans came fast. Their standard tactic: diving attack from high altitude, building tremendous speed, making one pass at the bombers, then extending away before the escorts could react. But Williams wasn't going to let them reach the bombers. 0854 hours. The lead 109 pilot, Lieutenant Hans Kruger, though Williams would never know his name, approached his release point at 450 miles per hour, his target, the lead B-17, with the white letters. Orders from his Staffelkapitän were explicit: shoot down the bomber with the insulting message, make an example, show the Americans that Germany would not tolerate such disrespect. Kruger armed his weapons: 1 20mm MG 151 cannon, 2 13mm MG 131 machine guns, 2 7.90mm MG 17 machine guns. Enough firepower to shred a B-17. At 1,000 meters, he would open fire. Then he saw the red tail. The American fighter came from below and ahead, climbing at an impossible angle, positioning itself directly in his path. Kruger had to make a choice: continue the attack and risk collision, or break off. He broke left. Williams rolled his P-51 inverted and pulled, tracking the 109 through the vertical. The German fighter extended away, building distance. Standard tactic. But Williams had altitude and speed. He stayed with the turn, pulling 5 Gs, the blood draining from his head, vision narrowing to a tunnel. The 109 leveled out at 29,000 feet. Williams rolled wings level behind it, 800 yards back. Too far for effective shooting, but closing. The German pilot must have checked his mirrors because the 109 suddenly snapped right and dove. Williams followed. The dive steepened, speed built. 350 knots, 400, 450. The Mustang shook. Williams trim corrected, keeping the 109 in his gun sight. At 24,000 feet, the German pulled out of the dive and turned hard left. Williams anticipated, cutting inside the turn. 600 yards now, 500. The 109's wing filled his gun sight. 400 yards. Williams pressed the trigger. 650 caliber machine guns converged their fire. Each gun fired 850 rounds per minute. In a 1-second burst, Williams sent 90 rounds downrange. The laws of physics and probability said some of those rounds would hit. They did. Tracers walked across the 109's left wing. Pieces of metal tore away. The German fighter rolled right, trying to evade, but Williams followed, leading the turn, firing again. This burst found the fuselage. The 109's canopy shattered. Smoke streamed from the engine. The German fighter rolled inverted and fell away, trailing fire. Splash 109, Williams reported. Red 2, status? Engaged with another 109, working him down to the bombers. Williams looked up. The rest of Red Flight had intercepted the diving attack. The 109s had scattered. None had reached the bombers. But the second group, the 10 FW-190s, was setting up for their attack, and they were targeting the Christmas bomber specifically. Oberleutnant Friedrich Weber, leading the FW-190 element, had received explicit orders from his Geschwader Commodore before takeoff. If you see a bomber with white letters on the wings, that is your primary target. Shoot it down. This is not negotiable. Weber understood. The message was an insult. Germany was losing the war. Everyone knew it, though no one dared say it openly, but allowing such mockery to survive would damage morale. Better to sacrifice aircraft and pilots, proving Germany still had teeth. Weber circled wide, studying the bomber formation. The American escort fighters were good, the ones with red tails especially. They stayed close to the bombers, refusing to be drawn away. Weber needed a coordinated attack, simultaneous from multiple directions. Overwhelm the escorts through sheer numbers. He keyed his radio, speaking in German. All aircraft, I have visual on the target. The lead bomber, high element, with white markings. Execute Himmelstoss, diving attack from multiple directions. I will attack from 12 o'clock high. Second element attacks from 6 o'clock low. Third element attacks from 3 o'clock level. Execute on my command. The FW-190s moved into position. Weber climbed to 31,000 feet, positioning himself directly ahead of the bomber formation. His wingman followed. Below and behind, the other 8 190s split into 2 elements of 4 aircraft each. Angriff, Weber shouted. Attack! 10 Focke-Wulf FW-190s dove toward the Christmas bomber from 3 directions. Williams saw them coming. All red tails, all red tails. Mass attack developing on the lead bomber. Multiple directions. Converge now. He pushed his throttle to the firewall. War emergency power. The Merlin engine screamed. 2,000 horsepower. The Mustang leaped forward. The math was brutal. 10 German fighters attacking. Only 4 red-tail Mustangs in immediate position, and Williams was 3 miles away, racing to intercept. Lieutenant Marcus Tex Washington, Williams's wingman, was closest to the bomber when the FW-190s attacked. He saw the lead German fighter diving from dead ahead, the classic head-on pass. The bomber's forward defensive guns opened fire, streams of 50 caliber tracers reaching out. But the closing speed was over 600 miles per hour. Small course corrections by the German pilot made the bomber's fire miss. Washington had one chance. He pulled his stick back hard, climbing to position himself between the 190 and the bomber. The German saw him coming and adjusted his dive, steepening the angle to pass beneath Washington's aircraft. But Washington anticipated. He rolled inverted and pulled, diving after the 190, matching the German's angle. The 190's nose came up, guns blazing. 20mm cannon shells and machine gun bullets converged on the B-17. Hits sparkled across the bomber's nose. The plexiglass shattered. But Washington was in position now, directly behind the German, 6 o'clock, 400 yards. He fired. His first burst missed. Lead error. Too much deflection. The 190 flashed through his gun sight. He corrected, leading less, firing again. This time, rounds struck the 190's tail section. The German pilot felt the hits and broke hard right, aborting his attack. Washington stayed with him. The 190 dove toward the deck, building speed, trying to extend away. But the Mustang was faster. Washington closed to 300 yards. 250. 200. He fired a 3-second burst. Shells hammered the 190's engine. Smoke poured from the cowling. The German fighter's prop stopped windmilling. The FW-190 dropped its nose and fell away, trailing black smoke. Washington pulled up, scanning for threats. Red 2, 190 damaged, breaking off. Where's the bomber? Still flying, Red 2, but they took hits. Above the formation, the second element of FW-190s, 4 aircraft attacking from 6 o'clock low, pressed their attack. They came in staggered trail, one after another, each pilot firing at the Christmas bomber's tail section. Lieutenant James Hawk Hawkins, flying Red 3, intercepted them from the side. He rolled into a high-angle deflection shot, the most difficult gunnery problem in air combat. The target is crossing perpendicular to your flight path. You must lead the target, judging its speed, your speed, the ballistic drop of your bullets, and the time of flight. Hawkins had practiced deflection shooting until it was instinct. He watched the second FW-190 crossing from left to right, estimated its speed at 380 knots, led by 2 aircraft lengths, and fired a 2-second burst. The 50 caliber rounds arced through space, arriving at the precise point where the German fighter was when they got there. Hits sparkled across the 190's wing root and fuselage. The German pilot snap-rolled right and dove, breaking off the attack. The third 190 in the string saw what happened and broke off early, refusing to complete his pass. The fourth pilot pressed the attack. Brave or foolish, the line was thin at 28,000 feet. Hawkins turned hard right, pulling 8 Gs, the aircraft shuddering at the edge of a high-speed stall. He fought to keep the 190 in sight through the turn. The German pilot completed his firing pass and extended away, diving for speed. Hawkins rolled wings level and dove after him. The 190 was fast in a straight line, one of the fastest fighters in the German inventory, but the Mustang had better high-altitude performance. Hawkins slowly closed the gap. 800 yards, 700, 600. At 500 yards, Hawkins fired. A long burst, 5 seconds, burning through ammunition. Tracers reached out. The 190 jinked left, then right, trying to spoil the shot. But Hawkins corrected, walking his fire across the German's flight path. Rounds hit. The 190's canopy exploded. The fighter rolled inverted and fell away, trailing smoke and pieces. Red 3, splash 190, probable on another. The third element, 4 FW-190s attacking from 3 o'clock level, pressed in from the side. They flew in line abreast, planning to saturate the formation with fire. But Williams arrived first. Captain James Williams arrived at the interception point with full war emergency power, his Mustang doing 450 miles per hour, and a decision to make. Standard doctrine said he should position himself between the attackers and the bombers, forcing them to fight through him. But 4 German fighters attacking simultaneously would overwhelm one defender. He chose aggression. Williams rolled right and dove slightly, pointing his nose at the lead FW-190. The German pilots saw him coming, a red-tailed Mustang boring in from their 11 o'clock high. The lead pilot held his course for 3 seconds, then broke left, refusing combat. The second pilot in the line held steady. Perhaps he thought Williams would follow the leader. Perhaps he underestimated Williams' gunnery. Perhaps he was just unlucky. Williams fired from 600 yards. A long burst, deflection shot, leading the target by 3 aircraft lengths. The rounds converged on the 190's right wing. The wing sheared off. The German fighter snap-rolled left and tumbled out of control. Williams broke hard right, avoiding the debris field. The 3rd and 4th 190s scattered, their coordinated attack broken. But Oberleutnant Weber, the formation leader, had circled back. He dove on Williams from above and behind, 6 o'clock high, 4,000 feet altitude advantage. Classic bounce position. Williams saw him at the last moment. A flash of reflected sunlight off a canopy. He snap-rolled left and pulled, the Mustang groaning under the stress. Weber fired as Williams turned. 20 mm of cannon shells passed through the space where Williams' aircraft had been 1 second earlier. Williams reversed his turn, rolling right now, pulling harder. 6 Gs, 7. His vision grayed. He grunted against the G-forces, fighting to stay conscious. The Mustang turned inside Weber's turn radius, one advantage the P-51 had over the FW-190. Weber recognized the danger and extended away, diving for speed. But Williams had altitude now. He dove after Weber, building speed. 400 knots, 450, 480. The Mustang shook. Williams trimmed out the controls, riding the edge of structural limits. Weber leveled out at 22,000 feet and turned hard left. Williams cut inside the turn, closing to 400 yards. He fired. Tracers reached out. The first burst missed. Too much deflection. Williams corrected and fired again. This time, rounds hammered Weber's engine and fuselage. The German fighter streamed white coolant. Weber snap-rolled right and dove, heading for the deck, hoping to reach German territory before his engine seized. Williams followed him down to 15,000 feet, confirming the damage, then broke off. The 190 was done. Whether Weber made it home or not, he was out of the fight. Williams pulled up, scanning for threats. The sky was empty of enemy fighters. The Luftwaffe attack was over. 10 FW-190s and 8 Bf-109s had intercepted. 7 were down, 3 confirmed destroyed by Williams, 2 by Washington, 2 by Hawkins, plus several damaged. The rest had scattered, and the bomber formation flew on, the Christmas message intact. Williams climbed back to 28,000 feet and rejoined the formation. The Christmas bomber still flew. The nose plexiglass was shattered, and Williams could see damage to the tail section, but the 4 engines ran smoothly. The formation proceeded to the target, bombed the Zeitz synthetic oil plant, and turned for home. The return flight was uneventful. The Luftwaffe had committed its available fighters to the morning interception and had nothing left for a second attack. Williams's flight escorted the bombers back to the Austria-Italy border, where they were relieved by P-38 Lightnings from the 82nd Fighter Group. Williams landed at Ramitelli at 14:24 hours. He'd been airborne for 7 hours 40 minutes. His aircraft had burned 437 gallons of fuel and expended 1,240 rounds of ammunition. He was exhausted, dehydrated, and sore from the G-forces, but unhurt. The debriefing took 2 hours. Williams described each engagement, confirmed his kills, and listened as Washington and Hawkins described theirs. The intelligence officer asked about the bomber with the white letters. The Germans wanted that bomber specifically, Williams explained. Every attack focused on it. They ignored the rest of the formation. Someone gave them orders to shoot down that particular B-17. Did it survive? Yes, sir. Took some damage, but it completed the mission. 3 days later, Williams received a radio message from the 457th Bombardment Group. The bomber had landed safely at Glatten. The crew wanted to thank the Red Tails for the escort, especially for protecting their Christmas message. They'd taken reconnaissance photos over the target showing the message clearly visible on the wings. Those photos were already circulating through the 8th Air Force. Captain Mackenzie's message read, "Your pilot saved our lives and our message. The Luftwaffe wanted to shoot down our Christmas greetings. You made sure Adolf got his mail. With gratitude and respect, the crew of Christmas Spirit." The 332nd Fighter Group's official history recorded the mission as December 25, 1944. Bomber escort to Leipzig area. Heavy enemy opposition. 7 enemy aircraft destroyed, several damaged. No bombers lost from escorted formation. But the pilots who flew that mission knew it as something more. They'd protected not just a bomber, but a message. A statement that even in the darkest days of war, Americans would find ways to laugh at tyranny. That courage came in many forms, including painting an insult on your aircraft and flying it into the heart of enemy territory. The 332nd Fighter Group's mission on December 25, 1944, reinforced lessons that had been developing throughout their combat deployment. By December, they'd flown over 15,000 sorties and lost 66 pilots. But they'd maintained their perfect escort record. No bomber lost to enemy fighters while under red tail protection. This was unprecedented in the 8th and 15th Air Forces. How? The answer lay in doctrine, discipline, and purpose. Other fighter groups measured success by kill counts. The 332nd measured success by bombers protected. When German fighters attacked, the Red Tails didn't chase individual kills. They stayed with the bombers, forcing the Germans to fight through them first. This approach required discipline. Fighter pilots naturally wanted to pursue enemies, especially when they had altitude and speed advantage. But the Red Tails resisted that temptation. The Christmas mission exemplified this doctrine. Williams had opportunities to chase damaged German fighters. He let them go. His mission was protection, not hunting. Every second he spent pursuing a damaged 1-90 was a second he wasn't protecting the bombers. This approach influenced fighter escort doctrine in the post-war Air Force. The principle that escort fighters should stay with their charges rather than ranging far in search of combat became standard teaching at fighter schools. The 332nd proved that protective coverage, consistently applied, achieved better results than aggressive hunting. Lieutenant Marcus Washington, Williams' wingman, went on to fly 112 combat missions, destroying 6 German aircraft. After the war, he became one of the first black officers in the newly integrated Air Force, eventually retiring as a colonel in 1968. Lieutenant James Hawkins completed 97 combat missions and received the Distinguished Flying Cross. He left the Air Force after the war, earned a degree in mechanical engineering, and worked for Boeing designing aircraft control systems. Captain James Williams flew 127 combat missions, destroying 8 German aircraft. He remained in the Air Force after the war, serving in Korea and Vietnam, retiring as a brigadier general in 1974. He never forgot the Christmas mission. In his retirement speech, he said, "On December 25, 1944, we protected a bomber with a Christmas message painted on its wings. The Luftwaffe wanted to shoot it down. We didn't let them. That was our job, protecting American courage wherever we found it." Oberleutnant Friedrich Weber, the German fighter leader, survived his engine damage and landed at a forward airfield in eastern Germany. His after-action report described the engagement. American escort fighters with red tails intercepted our formation before we could press home our attack on the target bomber. These pilots displayed exceptional skill and aggression. They refused to be drawn away from their charges and engaged us with coordinated tactics. Of 10 aircraft in my formation, 7 sustained damage or were destroyed. The target bomber survived. The American escort fighters' discipline exceeded anything we have encountered from other Allied fighter groups. Weber's report was filed with Luftwaffe command. By December 1944, German fighter forces were in critical condition. Fuel shortages limited training for new pilots. Experienced pilots were being killed faster than they could be replaced. The Reich was fighting a defensive war of attrition it could not win. The Tuskegee Airmen represented a particular problem for the Luftwaffe. Not just because of their skill, though that was considerable, but because of their consistency. German pilots learned to recognize the red tails and adjusted tactics accordingly. Some refused to engage. Others approached with extreme caution. The psychological impact of the 332nd's perfect escort record degraded German effectiveness. Several Luftwaffe pilot memoirs from the period mention the Rote Schwänze, red tails, with a mixture of respect and frustration. One pilot, whose name was lost in post-war records, wrote, "They fly as if each bomber is their brother. They will not leave. They will not be drawn away, and they shoot very well. To attack bombers escorted by the Rote Schwänze is to accept high losses." This was the highest compliment an enemy could pay. Captain Robert Mackenzie and the crew of Christmas Spirit completed their tour of 30 missions in March 1945. The bomber with the Christmas message flew 15 more missions after December 25th, always with fighter escort, often with the red tails. Mackenzie later said, "We painted that message as a joke, a way to thumb our nose at Hitler on Christmas Day. We didn't expect the Germans to take it so seriously. When we saw those FW-190s coming straight at us, ignoring every other bomber in the formation, we realized we'd made ourselves the primary target. That's when the red tails showed up. Those pilots put themselves between us and 18 German fighters. They didn't have to. They could have let us take our chances, but they didn't. They fought like hell to protect us. I owe my life to Captain Williams and his pilots." The crew chief, Technical Sergeant William Morrison, who'd painted the message, said, "I thought I was being clever. I almost got those men killed. But the red tails saved them. When I heard they'd shot down 7 German fighters protecting our bomber, I realized something. Those pilots weren't just protecting a B-17. They were protecting the right to thumb your nose at tyranny. That's worth fighting for." The Christmas message photos circulated widely through the 8th Air Force. They appeared in Stars and Stripes newspaper and were shown to war bond rally audiences in the United States. The image of a bomber with "Merry Christmas Adolf" painted on its wings, escorted by red-tailed fighters, became a symbol of American audacity and determination. Years later, in 1987, Mackenzie and Williams met at a Tuskegee Airmen reunion. Mackenzie shook Williams' hand and said simply, "Thank you for my life." Williams replied, "Thank you for that message. It reminded us what we were fighting for." The 332nd Fighter Group completed its combat operations in April 1945, having flown 15,533 sorties, destroyed 112 enemy aircraft in air-to-air combat, and maintained their perfect bomber escort record. No bomber under red tail escort was lost to enemy fighters, a feat unmatched by any other fighter group in the war. The group's success had implications far beyond tactical aviation. The Tuskegee Airmen proved that Black Americans could excel in the most demanding and technical military roles. This evidence contributed to President Harry Truman's decision to integrate the armed forces in 1948, ending racial segregation in the military. The doctrine developed by the 332nd, priority on escort protection over individual kills, influenced post-war fighter tactics. The U.S. Air Force incorporated these lessons into training programs. Modern fighter escort doctrine still emphasizes staying with protected aircraft rather than pursuing enemy fighters. The Christmas mission specifically entered Tuskegee Airmen lore as an example of their core mission. Protecting bombers wasn't just a tactical assignment, it was a moral commitment. Each bomber crew represented 10 American lives. The Red Tails took that responsibility seriously. Captain Williams's aggressive interception of the FW-190 formation, attacking the attackers before they reached the bombers, became a case study at fighter schools. The tactical problem was, how do you defend against a coordinated attack from multiple directions? Williams' solution: disrupt the coordination by attacking the attackers, forcing them to fight defensively before they can attack offensively. This approach required confidence, skill, and split-second decision-making. Williams possessed all three. His Christmas Day combat demonstrated that the best defense is sometimes an overwhelming offense. Captain James Williams remained in the Air Force when it integrated in 1948. He commanded fighter squadrons in Korea, flew 127 combat missions in F-86 Sabres, and shot down 2 MiG-15s. He attended the Air War College, earned a master's degree in military strategy, and rose to command level. In Vietnam, as a colonel, Williams commanded the 366th Tactical Fighter Wing, flying F-4 Phantoms. He understood air combat from both the fighter pilot and strategic commander perspectives. His emphasis on pilot training and tactical discipline reduced loss rates in his wing. He retired as a brigadier general in 1974, having served 32 years. He'd flown 352 combat missions across 3 wars, destroyed 11 enemy aircraft, and trained hundreds of pilots. He received the Distinguished Flying Cross with oak leaf clusters, the Silver Star, the Legion of Merit, and numerous other decorations. But when asked about his most significant mission, he always mentioned December 25, 1944. "We protected a bomber with a Christmas message," he would say. "The Luftwaffe wanted to shoot it down because the message offended them. We didn't let that happen." That mission represented everything the Tuskegee Airmen stood for. We protected not just aircraft, but the American spirit. The courage to laugh at tyranny, the freedom to paint an insult on your wings and fly it into enemy territory. That's what we were fighting for. Williams died in 2003, aged 84. His funeral at Arlington National Cemetery was attended by over 500 people, including 43 Tuskegee Airmen, 12 bomber crew members whose lives were saved by Red Tail escorts, and 3 former Luftwaffe pilots who'd faced the Red Tails in combat and wanted to pay their respects to a worthy opponent. The eulogy mentioned the Christmas mission specifically. The speaker, a retired Air Force Chief of Staff, said, "General Williams flew 352 combat missions. He shot down 11 enemy aircraft. He commanded wings, trained thousands of pilots, and shaped modern Air Force doctrine. But he was most proud of a single mission on Christmas Day, 1944, when he and his flight protected a bomber with an audacious message." That tells you everything you need to know about what he valued: courage, humor, defiance, and the willingness to protect those who dared to laugh at darkness. The Christmas mission of December 25, 1944, demonstrates that courage manifests in unexpected ways. The bomber crew's courage in painting an insulting message on their aircraft. The Red Tail's courage in defending that message against overwhelming odds. The decision to prioritize protection over glory. This mission occurred during a period when the United States was still a segregated nation. Black soldiers served in a military that officially considered them inferior. The Tuskegee Airmen flew combat missions for a country that denied them basic civil rights at home. Yet they performed with distinction, maintained the highest standards, and protected the lives of white bomber crews who might not have wanted to share a restaurant with them in the United States. Why? Because they understood something fundamental. The fight against tyranny required unity. Personal grievances, however legitimate, could wait until after the war. During the war, the mission was what mattered, and the mission was protecting American lives and defeating fascism. The Christmas bomber incident encapsulated this principle. A white bomber crew painted a message. Black fighter pilots protected it. Neither group was perfect. America wasn't perfect. But both groups understood they were fighting for something larger than themselves. The Luftwaffe wanted to shoot down the Christmas message because it represented American irreverence. The willingness to mock tyranny even in the midst of war. The refusal to grant authoritarianism the respect it demanded. That attitude, that defiant humor, was as dangerous to the Reich as any bomb. The Red Tails understood this instinctively. They weren't just protecting a bomber. They were protecting the right to laugh at dictators. The freedom to paint insults on military aircraft. The American tradition of irreverence toward authority. 79 years later, this mission reminds us that courage appears in many forms. Sometimes it's physical bravery in combat. Sometimes it's painting a message that will attract enemy fire. Sometimes it's staying with your bombers when every instinct tells you to chase the enemy. Sometimes it's serving a country that hasn't fully recognized your humanity. The Tuskegee Airmen demonstrated all these forms of courage. On Christmas Day 1944, they showed the world what American values looked like when defended by Americans who believed in them despite not always benefiting from them. That's the ultimate victory. Not just defeating the enemy, but proving through your actions what you're fighting for. Red Tail statistics for December 25, 1944, 36 P-51, Mustangs launched 7 hours 40 minutes average mission duration, 7 German aircraft destroyed, confirmed, 4 German aircraft damaged, probable, 0 bombers lost from escorted formation, 0 Red Tail fighters lost 44,476 total rounds of 50 caliber ammunition, expended 1,240 rounds fired by Captain Williams specifically, 47 minutes of intense combat 1 bomber, with an audacious message successfully protected 332nd Fighter Group cumulative statistics through December 1944, 15,000 plus combat sorties flown, 112 enemy aircraft destroyed, in air-to-air combat, 150 plus. Enemy aircraft destroyed on the ground, 950 plus ground targets destroyed, 66 Red Tail pilots killed in action, 32 pilots captured as POWs, 0 bombers lost to enemy fighters while under escort. That final statistic, 0 bombers lost, represented the 332nd singular achievement. Every other fighter group in the 8th and 15th Air Forces lost bombers to enemy fighters at some point. The Red Tails never did, not once, not in over 15,000 sorties. This record wasn't accident. It was doctrine implemented with discipline. It was the deliberate choice to prioritize protection over glory. It was the understanding that the mission mattered more than individual achievement. Captain Williams' 7 combat victories on Christmas Day contributed to his personal tally, but that's not what he remembered. He remembered keeping the Germans away from the bomber with the white letters. He remembered the bomber crew surviving. He remembered proving that the Red Tails would protect anyone under their escort, regardless of who they were or what message they chose to paint on their aircraft. The photographs of Christmas Spirit with its provocative message circulated through military channels and eventually reached the public. They were published in Life magazine in January 1945, accompanied by an article about the Tuskegee Airmen's perfect escort record. The image became iconic, a symbol of American defiance and determination. After the war, Captain Mackenzie kept a piece of the bomber's wing with the "Merry Christmas Adolf" lettering. The B-17 was eventually scrapped, but he preserved that section of aluminum. He donated it to the Smithsonian's National Air and Space Museum in 1985. where it remains on display in the World War II aviation section. The placard reads, "This wing section comes from B-17G Christmas Spirit, which flew a mission on December 25, 1944, carrying a Christmas greeting to Adolf Hitler." The bomber was protected by the 332nd Fighter Group, the Tuskegee Airmen, who shot down 7 German fighters attempting to destroy it. The message made it to Berlin. The bomber made it home, and the Red Tails maintained their perfect escort record. Every year on December 25th, the Tuskegee Airmen organization hosts a remembrance ceremony for the Christmas mission. Veterans who flew that day, their numbers dwindling each year, share stories. Younger generations learn about the mission, and everyone reflects on what it means to protect not just aircraft, but ideas. Not just bombers, but the freedom to laugh at tyranny. In 2019, the last surviving pilot from the Christmas mission, Lieutenant Marcus Washington, aged 96, attended the ceremony. He spoke briefly, his voice still strong despite his age. "We were young," he said, 20, 25 years old. "We thought we were invincible, but we knew our mission. Protect the bombers, always. When we saw that B-17 with the Christmas message, we knew the Germans would come for it hard, and they did. We stopped them. Not because we were heroes, because it was our job. That's what the Red Tails did. We protected American courage wherever we found it, even painted on wings at 28,000 feet over Germany on Christmas Day." He paused, looking at the younger faces in the audience. Remember this: courage appears in unexpected places. Sometimes it's a bomber crew painting an insult for the enemy. Sometimes it's fighter pilots protecting that insult. Sometimes it's serving a country that hasn't always served you. But it's always worth it. Because freedom, real freedom, includes the right to laugh at tyrants. We fought to protect that right. We do it again. The ceremony concluded with a flyover by modern Air Force fighters. They flew in missing man formation, honoring those who didn't return. Then they formed up in a special pattern, one that, from the ground, spelled out in contrails, "Merry Christmas." 79 years after the mission, the message endures. And so does the memory of the young men who protected it. If this story moved you, remember the principle. Courage takes many forms, but protecting it is always the right choice. The Tuskegee Airmen flew 15,000 sorties without losing a single escorted bomber to enemy fighters. That's not just a record, it's a promise kept. Comment below. What other untold stories from World War II should we share?